it is Ram again. So today we are going to talk a little bit about what is Tantra actually, really. What is, in what way Tantra is different in other forms of spirituality or self-improvement or anything which is kind of a path for evolution in spiritual or emotional way. So what is usually the first classification of Tantra is basically three ways to see it. There is usually in traditional format three paths of Tantra. One is usually called the white path, white Tantra. And then there is one path which is called red Tantra. And the last path is called black Tantra. The white Tantra is basically the path of Tantra which is very pure, which is very, it doesn't deal really with anything which has to do with controlling things, using our ego for all kind of selfish purposes. It is mainly aimed for enlightenment. It is mainly aimed for spiritual evolution, for becoming something like a bodhisattva, someone who really wants to help all beings, to free all beings from suffering. This is a form of white Tantra. But there are other paths of Tantra. The red path, for example, is the path of pleasure. The red path is the path that was used sometimes by the Rajas, by the kings of India, and it was mainly aimed to make them having more and more pleasure, having 10 wives and enjoying them all and satisfying them all, and increasing the amount of pleasure they experience in their interaction, basically mostly sexual interaction in life. But not only, there are pleasure from food, from the senses in general, the ability basically to enjoy life. And the last part of Tantra, the last path of Tantra is called Black Tantra. Black Tantra is basically the path that is kind of the path of magic, the path of using energies and control other people, affecting other people, and having really some advantage of other people. This path is basically a banned path. It's a path which is not very accepted in the more elevated type of Indian society. It is kind of the path of the lower castes. And when you talk about Hindu religion, when it's talking about black path of Tantra, you can't really see it too much in the Tibetan, for example. You can see it in some aspect of Bon, of some sort of the magician or the Lamu. They have this thing of magic there, but usually the view is beneficial. So actually also the black path is sort of spiritual in a way. It's just, it can be a spiritual path, but it's a path which is going through very, very dark places, through magic, through all kind of very secret, esoteric ways of using willpower, and not always in a good way, at least not in a safe way. So this is basically one classification, and you can see the examples in India for the white path. Actually, the white path of Tantra had been almost diminished in the Hindu, at least in the Hindu religion, in this side of Tantra, because it was mostly the path of the elite class. It was the path of the Kaula, for example. This was like the class of the high upper level of society. And the English, when they came to India, they more or less diminished this thing. They heard about these rich people and these elite artists and all these privileged people, and they heard that they're doing all kind of hanky-panky things, and they were very Puritan at the time they ruled India. And basically they wanted to cut it out. They didn't want India to have these things, and they prosecute and run after the people who did these white tantric things. While the people who did the red tantra was usually the privileged, but one that had power, like the Rajas and the very rich people, but not necessarily the more spiritual people. And the black tantra, which was actually the tantra of the outcast and the people who didn't really have a good role in society, it was actually the one that had been saved the most. This is the most surviving path of tantra in the Indian sort of tradition. So the Agori and Naga Sadhu and many type of classes of tantrics of the black side, they were actually surviving and maintained their practices and till this day, basically. So in some places in India, when you say you are a tantric, the people will treat you with fear because they think you are kind of a magician that can put curse on them or can use spells on them. One of the ways actually Tantra was revealed to the West was by a very famous author, Arthur Avalon, Sir John Moongrove. He's the first, let's say, Western who wrote about Tantra. And this person, he was like a British judge, and he worked in one of the biggest cities of India at the time, if I'm not wrong, it was Calcutta. And he had this case. He was a very strong, he was a kind of a powerful, confident person, and usually he was very determined in the cases he judged, but he had this case that he simply could not make up his mind. He didn't know what to do because he was really confused. Whatever he came to work on that case, he saw he was basically overwhelmed by confusion, and he understood something unnatural is happening here. So he investigated, and what he found out was that two families had hired tantric magicians, basically to influence his mind, and he was kind of torn between the powers of their influence on him, the mental influence they had on him. So this is why he was so confused, and this made him search, and he found out about Tantra, and he went actually on a journey to learn more about the esoteric sciences of India. This is how basically Tantra was revealed first in the West. So this is kind of the story about Tantra in this respect. And Tantra is usually also separated into two kinds of approaches. There is the right-hand approach and the left-hand approach. And the right-hand Tantra is the Tantra which is kind of clean. It doesn't involve sexuality or using all kind of what is called dirty materials, and it is kind of the more aesthetic, clinical, pure path, and it's the less risky path as well. In India, of course, the right hand is the one that is used for eating, it's the clean hand, while the left hand, which we're going to talk about, is the one used to whip the ass. This was not basically the reason why they called the right path the clean path, and the left path, the right hand path, the clean path, and the left hand path, it was like the dirty path, the path which involves sexuality, working with the body, working with eating meat and stuff like this, working with doing a lot of things which were the big no's for the Hindu society of the time. And basically the left-hand path is more like a path which going low. It's going to all the lower negative energies and learn how to sublime it and learn how to transform it into something good. So actually the left hand has something to do with the ceremonies, how we were organizing ceremonies in this tantric culture. Basically what it means for us that the left hand tantra is the tantra that has to do with sexuality, actual contact between two people. And today most people mistaken tantra to be very sexual, all about sexuality, while in reality it was not really about sexuality. Only about 5% of tantra was having anything to do with sexuality. All the rest has to do with things starting from astrology to really esoteric ways of meditation and controlling energies and you name it. So this part of Tantra, which has actually to do with sexuality, become very emphasized when Tantra got to the West, because we were very, very we are very fixated on sexuality. So this part was kind of enlarged. But this is not just a small part of Tantra has to do with sexuality. And even dealing with sexuality, the right path of Tantra might use sexual ideas, but it will be more like working with entities, with angels, with connecting with specific energies of the universe in a way which make your energy merge with them. It will not basically talk about physical contact. The left hand will talk about physical contact with people of the opposite sex, and we'll talk about the opportunity for spiritual growth it has in it. So this is just a small part of Tantra. It's not what all about Tantra is. Tantra is not only about sex. Tantra actually is much beyond that. It's much more than that. Tantra has so many things that people don't know about it, have amazing potential for spiritual growth. Actually, if you look at the Tibetan side, so the most famous character we know about being a Tantra master, which is the Dalai Lama, he's a monk, and as far as I know, this Dalai Lama never touched a woman. So you can be a great tantric master without having anything to do with sexuality. Today, as I said, sexuality has a lot of importance for us Westerners and probably for some of the Indians or Tibetans. So this form of Tantra is learned as well, and it's kind of important today. But as I said, it's not the whole story, it's not the whole thing.